IVM.
News Kids on the Block. We bring to you stories that top the nation's papers. Fresh from the Ascend International School and IVM desk. Hi, I'm Kavya.
I'm Anya.
And I'm Trivik.
And welcome to the 5th episode of News Kids on the Block, where we give you all the top news updates of the week. It's crazy to think that it's already been 5 episodes. It doesn't feel like it. But today we will be kind of doing a special Olympics episode. As you guys know, the Olympics this year were held in Tokyo. Even though it is taking place in 2021, it's still known as the 2020 Tokyo Olympics because it was supposed to take place in 2020. But it is, if you don't know, it's the greatest sporting event which occurs once every 4 years, where the best of the best congregate and battle it out.
Yeah, and a few days ago, the 2020 Tokyo Olympics started. And I think that this tournament is a place for athletes who are at the top of their game, and they come together representing their country and sharing in their love of sports and sportsmanship or sportswomanship. And we can learn so much when it comes to their stories, which are just testimonies of courage, resilience, and grit. So today we want to take you through some of the key moments of the Olympics. It's been a week, I think, starting with Mirabai Chanu, which Kavya will take us through. But before that, it's really important to remember that this list of ours doesn't even begin to cover all of the incredible feats that both our Indian athletes and athletes from all over the world have done in this short time. So, Kavya, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Anya. That was very well said. So, Mirabai Chanu is a weightlifter from Mizoram, which is in the northeast of India. And she was the first Indian to win a medal in the 2020 Olympics. And the Chinese woman who won gold, I think it was really great to see her because she was so effortless doing it. But at the same time, not to take anything away from Mirabai Chanu, because when I was watching the medal ceremony later, I got this sense of pride. I don't know her. I obviously have no personal connection with her. But I think just because she was representing India and she had made India so proud, that it was really amazing to watch. And it's really exciting to think what we can expect from her in the future. And she managed to lift a total of 202 kgs in the women 49 kg category. And she became the second Indian weightlifter after Karnam Malleshwari to win an Olympic medal. And she also registered a new Olympic record when she successfully lifted 115 kgs in the clean and jerk category.
Well, next up, we have PV Sindhu, our star badminton player. She won the silver medal in the Rio Olympics after losing to Spain's Carolina Marin. But she definitely seems back on track, having most recently beaten Qing Nyung Yi from Hong Kong 2-0.
So this week, for the first time ever, the first ever fencer to represent our nation at the Olympics also became the first ever Indian to win a bout at Olympics. Bhavani Devi has impressed our whole nation.
Trivik, what has happened in her Olympic journey so far?
So basically, Bhavani breezed past her first opponent in the round of 64, winning 15-3 against Tunisia's Ben Azizi. Bhavani's life has seen many turns, from having to choose the sport in school just because it was the only option left, to representing India at the Olympics. Where she's come from to where she is now is it's insane to think about it. And however, as impressive as this whole story is so far, her Olympics run sadly came to an end as she fell short of a win against M. Brunet of France in the round of 32.
Thanks, Trivik. Next, let's talk about Mary Kom. She was definitely took the nation by storm a few years ago. And she started off her 2020 Tokyo Olympics in a really good way when she beat Miguelina Hernandez Garcia in her weight category on Sunday from Japan. And she won 4-1 by split decision. And yeah, in 2012, she won a bronze medal in the Olympics. So let's hope that we can see her winning another medal this year. On that very heavy and deep note, we shall take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Zarina Poonawalla, host of the Empowering Series podcast on the IVM network. I happen to be a peak performance coach and leadership coach by profession, and I'm here to share with you productivity tools, life-altering techniques, and real-life hacks to help you achieve your maximum potential in everything you do, your relationships, professions, careers. So tune in every Monday to unleash your inner power. Be safe, be well, be empowered.
Welcome back to News Kids on the Block. My name is Trivik, and our next story is about Manika Batra. So, Manika Batra represented India in the women's table tennis at this year's Olympics. I didn't watch a lot of the Olympic games this time around, at least. And I have to say, I did actually watch the women's table tennis, and I was very, very impressed with Manika Batra. I thought she put up a sensational performance in at least the two games she won, which are the ones I watched. She first beat T Ho of the United Kingdom, and next she beat M. Pesotska of Ukraine in the next round. However, she did fall short in the third round against S. Sofia Polkanova of Austria. She lost 4-0. But I think she was very impressive. I was very impressed with her resilience in game. But what I mean is, she tended to fall behind in a lot of sets. Okay, like she wasn't always, demolishing her opponents, and she was always fighting back. She was never constantly in the lead. However, she always seemed to find a way to get back to the top, and that was something which I found very impressive about her. In an interview after she got knocked out, she said she had very high expectations for herself, and she was disappointed to be knocked out at this stage of the competition. However, I have no doubt that someone with her resilience and talent will do very well in the competitions to come.
Next up, we've got hockey, our national sport. Speaking of losses, if you will, the women's team is currently struggling, having most recently lost against Great Britain on Tuesday morning. Next, we have the men's hockey team, of course. So the men's team actually beat New Zealand in their first game, and it was a great win. But after that, they suffered a horrible loss against Australia. I think they went like a quarter or two without scoring at all, and it even ended up being 1-7 or 1-8. And it was really sad. But luckily, the men's team has made a comeback against Spain, who they most recently beat. And, that's showing us some signs of hope.
Next up, we have a story that might seem ordinary on the outside. Momiji Nishiya from Japan.
Well, Kavya, speaking of women just doing incredible things, that's a terrible segue, but the story that I wanted to take was about the German athletes gymnasts actually, and the women's team. They wore full body suits. Typically, they'll wear like a leotard kind of thing, which doesn't cover their legs or their arms completely. And it kind of reminded me of something that I read in the news a little while ago, where a girls' beach volleyball team was protesting against wearing essentially bikini-like things while they play. And what they actually said was that we'll continue to wear them, but we're just letting you know that we don't feel comfortable in them and we feel sexualized.
I also, sorry to interrupt, Anya, I also heard that Pink, the American singer, she offered to pay the fine that they were fined with for not wearing bikini bottoms, which is really great.
Exactly. I don't know. I guess it just with sports like this where women are kind of not necessarily, but they tend to, and then now I'm being made to wear certain kinds of clothes while they play. It takes away from them. At least I feel that it takes away from them as athletes, and it just becomes like something to watch for like a certain effect rather than to watch and appreciate them for being the sportswomen that they are. And so I thought that was a great move from the German team. And, full body suit or not, that doesn't take away from their talent or their ability to be great gymnasts. So that was something that I thought I'd like to share.
Definitely. And for our last Olympic story for the day, it's about someone who's considered the greatest gymnast of all time, Simone Biles. She tragically dropped out of the Olympics, the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. I'll take you guys through a bit of a backstory. So in her vault event, which is considered to be one of her best events, when she did it, it wasn't as good as her usual vault, and it was a bit shaky. And when she landed, she buckled her knees and she fell forward, but she didn't fall down. And then she walked out of the floor, and when she returned, her leg was wrapped up. So then she went to her teammates and she said something, and then she dropped out of the Olympics. And in an interview later, she said, in a press conference later, she said that she was really stressed because of the Olympics and the week and stuff. And she wasn't really having fun, which was not something that she wanted to continue doing. And she also said, quote, "I took a step back because I didn't want to do something silly out there and get injured." And the reason of her dropping out isn't 100% clear, but there have also been a lot of connections to stress and mental health and about putting it first, especially in athletes. And I think this kind of connects to something that we had talked about either, I don't know if it was in one of our pilots or our episodes, but about Naomi Osaka, a tennis player, resigning and dropping out of a tournament because of mental health issues as well. And I think this really shows, like we've talked about, the significance of mental health in athletes, and it's not always often given as much importance. And I think it's really important to show light on that and show people that it's not perfect in any world, and people do time and time again have issues, and it's really important to take care of them and do what you need to do for yourself. We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Hey everybody, let me tell you a little bit about what happened on the IVM Podcast Network this week. If you are a fan of the network, you should definitely check out Naan Kari. Sadaf and Archit were joined by Keshav Chaturvedi of the Tere Mere Raste podcast. They talk about travel and food and, how important food is when you're considering travel. It's a really, really interesting conversation. Do check that out. Let me give you another couple of quick hits to check out. On Storytellers and Storysellers, Vineet talks to Ashim Mathur from Dolby. On Smarter with Sid, Siddharth examines how Netflix is getting into e-commerce. Check out Misconduct with Raghavi and Nisha to learn about some of India's most famous criminals. And don't forget, do follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram to keep up with what's going on the network. And finally, I'd like to thank the sponsors of the network this week. They are what makes this possible. Thank you so much, Seat, Cred, Global Victoria, Bank of Baroda, Intuit, and Lenovo. We really do appreciate the support.
Welcome back to News Kids on the Block. Moving on, I have another story. This is not an Olympic story, so you guys have finally been spared. I'm not going to ramble about sports anymore. Our next story is about a spyware application called Pegasus, which has been in the news lately.
Trivik, can you explain to our listeners what exactly spyware is?
So a spyware is any malicious software designed to enter your computer device, gather your data and forward it to like a third party without taking your consent, if that is clear enough.
Yeah, that's pretty insane. So, Trivik, tell us, what exactly can Pegasus do?
So Pegasus can record your calls, copy your messages, see your emails, listen to your talks via a microphone in your phone, the microphone in your phone, and secretly film you, which is a great threat to privacy and a potential infringement of human rights.
That's really crazy. Are there any records of where Pegasus has been applied or used?
There are. The Pegasus Project has revealed that more than 50,000 phone numbers were targeted by a spyware created by NSO Group, an Israeli software company. On the list were 300 verified phone numbers in India, including those of ministers, opposition leaders, a sitting judge, more than 40 journalists, and several activists and business persons.
Thanks, Trivik. That's really crazy. But let's move on to our last story of the day before we end, which is about Chief Minister of Karnataka resigning, B.S. Yediyurappa. He recently resigned as Chief Minister of Karnataka, and the new Chief Minister is Basavaraj Bommai, who is a 61-year-old. Obviously, the exact reasons of resignation for B.S. Yediyurappa wasn't really stated, but people are assuming that it was maybe because of age or the fact that he was accused of corruption and many more reasons. But anyways, that's all we have for you today. We hope you enjoyed this episode of News Kids on the Block. Don't forget to tune into us every Friday for our fresh take on the news from across the globe.
If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out our other interesting podcasts on the IVM network.
You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcast on Twitter and Instagram.
We'll see you next week, but till then, do share this episode with your folks. Stay safe and don't forget to do your homework.
If you love cricket, listen up. The Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast is here for you. Hosted by DJ, Varun, and me, Ashwin, we bring a fun, fresh fan's point of view to talking all things cricket. Sometimes it's just the three of us, sometimes we have guests, including current and former international cricketers. For new episodes every week, check out the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast on the IVM app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Feeling overwhelmed, anxious, struggling with too many obstacles, don't know where your life is headed? Well, if you are dealing with one or all of these, tune into the Positively Unlimited podcast, because in each episode, I share a life lesson, a life hack, a pro tip that can help you get your life back on track. All episodes are available on the IVM website, IVM Podcast app, or wherever it is that you get your podcast from.